Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is the Baseball and Beer Podcast, and I am your host, Brendan Bowes. Hey everyone, guess what? This is episode number 20. 2-0. Pretty stoked that we made it this far, but I seem to be saying that every episode going forward, so we'll just assume that's going to be the case from here on out. But 20 is a big number. It's 10 more. It doubles 10, which is usually another baseline for people. But been doing this for 20 weeks, and it feels good. I feel like I'm getting something accomplished. Hopefully you guys are getting a bit of a lesson in either baseball or beer, or, screaming at your listening device at me in regards to my stupidity. That's what you think as well. Anyway, I appreciate everyone listening, and hopefully we are go for another 20 more. Well, 20, a lot more than 20, but you get the point. So anyway, episode 20, here we go. So I've come to an interesting realization over the last few days, and I actually posted it on my Facebook page, facebook.com/baseballbeerpod. But yeah, I posted there that, and this is something I've known since when I first started this podcast 20 weeks ago, that baseball doesn't last for the entire year. It's not a continuous thing like pro wrestling. But I've been talking about it forever, but baseball's coming to an end. Got about 3 weeks left before the playoffs start, and then there's no more baseball. So I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what to do, and as much as I love baseball, I love football just as much. Thankfully, football has just started, so I'm probably going to switch baseball over to football. Beer's still going to be beer, because that never changes. And, I'll throw in a lot of other random things during different times as well, because, that's what I'm good for. If you don't listen to baseball, or if you don't watch baseball but watch football, and you've been listening for just the beer part, now's your chance to listen to the extra 20 minutes that I give you. And if you listen just for the baseball part, crossing my fingers that you are a football fan as well. If not, I understand. You could take a break from my silly voice. But but my plan is football. I can't really change the entire podcast to baseball, or football and beer rather. So still going to be called Baseball and Beer. Hopefully that's not misleading to you guys. But if anyone has any other thoughts, I'm always, my ears are always open, or my eyes are always open for emails. Just shoot me an email. baseballbeerpodcast@gmail.com. And like I said, just tell me, football is probably the best bet. I do realize that the NHL and NBA are also around the corner, but not familiar enough with those sports to really talk about it in depth like I do with baseball, and like how I plan to with football. If a huge news story breaks out, I might discuss it. I'm not going to be very reliable on the news or how to pronounce players' names or anything like that, but if you ask, I might deliver, though I'm going to try my hardest. But for now, the plan is football and beer. But anyway, quick recap of week 1 of football, just to give you an idea of what we'd be looking at. My favorite team are the Raiders in the NFL. I was extremely optimistic about them. I thought that there was a finally light at the end of the tunnel. These guys have sucked for such a long time that, the last time that they were good, I had just become legal to drink beer. Alcohol. And right now I'm 34, if that's any indication on, how long it's been. So the expectations were somewhat high. They have a young quarterback who seemed okay in his rookie year, being thrown into a spot he wasn't supposed to be in starting last year. They have that's Derek Carr. They have running back that they thought they could, make their bell cow in Latavius Murray. And the rookie wide receiver, Amari Cooper, this year is, it's the 5th, 6th pick this year. A lot of people predicting was going to be the offensive rookie of the year. And the Cincinnati Bengals just walked all over them. It was sad to watch, and I know the Raiders scored 2 touchdowns, but they were fourth quarter garbage time touchdowns. So my expectations pretty much fell flat, even though it's week 1. Not that I'm trying to be negative against the Bengals, because they've been solid for a long time, but if there was a team to look good against in the season opener, the Bengals were certainly one of them. It's not even the fact that they lost, it's the fact that they looked awful doing it. Even David Carr got, had to be taken out and was replaced by Matt McGloin for, 3 quarters because Mr. Carr decided to stiff arm someone in the helmet with his thumb. So it is what it is. Still holding on to hope a little bit, but I wouldn't expect a whole lot. But, the Raiders are basically the White Sox. I have poor taste in choosing teams. I don't know why, but yep, that's my quick NFL recap.
Beer is good. Beer is good. Beer is good. It's not.
So, with this being the 20th episode of Baseball and Beer, I realized there's something I haven't actually done for the beer part yet, and I figured now is a better time than ever to give it a whirl. So, without giving away, I don't know if I'm really not sure how this is going to work out, but, give it a go. Without spoiling it, let me see if I can give you guys the audio clue as to what this is. All right, I hope that sounded okay, but that was me opening a bottle of beer. So if you haven't guessed by now, I'm going to taste and sample a beer for the first time live on air. So we're going to see how this is, or how this works out. The beer of choice, I was just rooting through my fridge, seeing what I had that I either have never had or had such a long time ago that I don't remember. So rooting around, I found a chocolate porter from Boulder Beer Company called Shake. I quickly I quickly went to Untappd, saw that I had this back in April of this year, so that's how long ago it was. It was pre-podcast time, so I'm very curious as to how this is going to work out. So, as you all know, I do enjoy good stout / porter. Chocolate ones are certainly what I prefer, so we have the makings for a pretty good beer. So let me see how well this gets picked up. I'm pouring it into the glass. Now, if you watch other beer reviewers, they have a tendency to really overemphasize a whole lot of stuff about beer. Its lacing, its mouthfeel, that sort of thing. Pours okay. I don't know. It doesn't look anything special. It's about 1.5 fingers of foam. Let me smell. Definitely has a heavy chocolate smell to it, so that's a good start. Let's see, what else can I talk about in terms of visual? It's certainly a porter darkness. It's been in my fridge for a long time. It's already frosted over my mug. All right, so let's see what this son of a bitch tastes like. All right, so first thoughts immediately, there is a lot of chocolate. This is basically molten chocolate beer. Chocolate emphasizes the taste. It's really heavy on that chocolate. I don't know how many times I could say chocolate, but I'm going to try to say it as many times as possible. But there's also a hint of malt in there. Deep malt like you would find regularly in a porter or a stout. So this seems to really hit the mark on what it was trying to accomplish here. It has a very soft and light mouthfeel. Feels very thin, which is, I guess, strange for a porter. Usually they feel a bit thicker, but I don't know. It's good. It's very heavy on the chocolate. This is not a beer that I should be drinking in the afternoon. This is definitely a dessert beer, not a beer to have when you're recording your podcast in the afternoon beer. So you guys should be appreciating what I'm doing for you. This is I like it. I like it a lot. It's very curious, though. It's like it has the look, the smell, and the taste of a porter. It just doesn't look like a porter, if that makes sense. It's very odd. Alright, so the chocolate seems to have died down after about 2 minutes of it being in the mug. It's still there, it's still present, but it's the malt is starting to take over. It's not strong malt, but it's malt nonetheless. Where it was 85-15 in favor of chocolate when I first tasted it, it's gone down to probably about 70-30. Yeah, the malt is definitely taken over. When I put this on Untappd the first time, I gave it 4 stars, which I think is a bit suiting. I mean, since the time when I first reviewed it, Untappd allowed you to do like quarter stars and 3/4 stars along with half stars and full stars. I would probably give this a 4.25. It's interesting. Like, I still can't get over the fact that it's a porter, but it doesn't look like a porter. Okay, so there is another taste in there. Between the malt, the chocolate, there is another sweetness texture to it. So I'm curious to figure out what this is. Let me check the Untappd description. Alright. Our twist on the traditional robust American porter, Shake Chocolate Porter, is dark black in color with rich, sweet aromatic and flavors of dark chocolate, coffee, and caramel. Alright, so I was tasting the caramel. I didn't taste the coffee. It was chocolate and caramel that I tasted. This unique brew blends 5 different grains, including chocolate wheat. That, along with cocoa nibs, create a devilishly delicious chocolate finish with a velvety mouthfeel. See, okay, so I pretty much had it on point there. Velvety mouthfeel, very soft, very soothing mouthfeel, which, like I've been saying, it's unique for a porter, but here we are. I'm really enjoying this. That's really what it boils down to, is I am enjoying it. So, Shake Chocolate Porter from Boulder Beer Brewery. I'm assuming they're in Colorado. Let's see if their website tells me where they're from. Boulder Beer Company. It has to be Boulder, Colorado. Duh. So, that's my review, and I would certainly suggest giving it a shot if you like chocolate porters. Alright, so I am going to finish this off mic. I will be right back. Alright, so by the time I finish this, I would say that it was probably about 15% chocolate, 50% malt, and the rest of it was caramel. I don't want to do the math right now. It was a very solid beer. I still taste the chocolate. It was dark chocolate taste, so that gives you an idea of what you were looking at. Took a bit longer for me to finish than I had hoped, but, whatever. It was good. I liked it. I recommend it. I don't know if it's in season at this point, or what else Boulder Beer Company makes to, at least suggest anything by them. But if you do see it, I would buy it, especially if you prefer the chocolate stouts or the chocolate porters. Also, just a quick technical note. Excuse me. First half of this show, it's going to sound, it probably sounds a little bit tinny to you. Sounds like I was talking into a tin can with the microphone behind it. I apologize for that. I figure I might as well just full out embarrass myself and say that I had the microphone backwards, because I did. Didn't realize it until just a little while ago. So if you notice the huge sound difference, that was the reason. Going forward, it'll sound clear like this. If you didn't notice it, then you could ignore everything I just said. Thank you for listening for 20 episodes.
Single, double, triple, home run. For the celebration, I'll shoot my gun.
So, quick White Sox update before I actually go into actual sports or actual baseball. Last night they lost 16-4, I think it was. Something like that. 18-4. And it got so bad that both Leroy Garcia and Alexi Ramirez ended up pitching late in the game. And strangely enough, they had scoreless innings, so Jeff Samardzija can go pound sand, and we'll just have our shortstop pitching, because can't be any worse than that fucking guy. I was a huge Samardzija fan when we first traded for him, and he had a good or / decent first half of the season, and then he just fell off a literal cliff. Well, not literal, figurative cliff. He's been bad. He's been really bad. As a matter of fact, it was this game with his 10 to earn runs that gave him a season ERA of over 5. So congratulations. Enjoy your time elsewhere for 2016. But onto real baseball. Jerry Krasnick of ESPN.com just recently put up an article about kind of revisiting the trades that happened at the deadline or near the trade deadline, kind of see where we stand after that. So I thought it was a good idea. I have it up here. I'm going to review it, see if we agree or not. So first up is the Mets when they traded for Yoenis Cespedes while he was on the Tigers. Now, obviously, with these deals, the teams that I'm going to be talking about, they had to give up prospects or younger players. So it's unfair to, grade the actual trade itself because the prospects have yet to had a chance to contribute, if at all. So I'm just focusing more on the big name player that was, the big name player in the trade. So in this case, it's strictly Cespedes. And as I've been saying for a while now, the Mets have been on fire, and Cespedes has been a huge reason as to why. I know there's been talk about possibly giving him a nod for the National League MVP, which is quite silly. That's still Bryce Harper's to lose, or at least it should be. But the Mets have been insanely good since making the trade. I think they're I know they've only lost 12 or 10 to 12. Okay, they're 30-12 since trading for Cespedes, and that is remarkable. They have first place in the NL East, and they don't look to be giving that up anytime in the near future. So obviously this has been a smart move, and I actually hear that the Mets may even be looking to go all in for next year and offer Cespedes a deal since he's a free agent. Hopefully keep him from the long term. We'll see how that goes. All right, so second on this list is Toronto, as they acquired both Troy Tulowitzki and David Price. Tulowitzki from the Colorado Rockies, David Price from Detroit. So Detroit was doing a bit of a garbage sale, or fire sale rather. Let's see. So Troy Tulowitzki, he started off really good. He started off on fire, then kind of leveled off. with a bit of a valley. And since then, he's been injured, which is quite the norm for him. Other than that, I think he's leveled off. I think he's gotten to the point where he's not the superstar he once was, but he's above average and is a good contributor to the team. David Price, as we all know, is one of the top left-handed pitchers in baseball, and he's going to be a coveted commodity come the offseason. But he's certainly been David Price for Toronto, which is good because they need that ace as they're making their playoff push as well. Where the Mets have a nice healthy lead, the Blue Jays are a little bit not in panic, but their lead is not as healthy. But I've said it before, the Mets and Blue Jays are what I hope the World Series is. It's super offense against super pitching. So, the Blue Jays, while having super offense, their pitching isn't bad. And, same thing could be said for the Mets, whereas their offense isn't that bad, obviously with Cespedes now, but, it certainly holds their own, at least to the point where they can go 30-12 in a 42-game span and be in first place. So, another solid deal. Third on this list is the Pirates, as they acquired several people. Joakim Soria, Michael Morse, Joe Blanton, Amaris Ramirez. But the big one, or at least the one Krasnick is listing, is Jay Happ from the Mariners. Now, Jay Happ traditionally has been, at best, a little above average as a pitcher. I know he spent a lot of time in Philly. After he left, I'm not sure where he was, but he somehow ended up on the Mariners, and the Mariners gave him up for a minor leaguer. I don't know. But Happ has apparently been doing very well. As it says here, he's been 5-2, has an ERA below 2. His WHIP is a tick above 1.0, and his strikeout to walk ratio is 50 strikeouts to 9 walks, which is bonkers. So that sounds solid. I know Pirates are certainly in the running for a wild card spot. Possibly with some miracle, the NL Central. But again, that's a miracle. But Pirates seem to have their lineup solidified with Francisco Liriano, Charlie Morton, AJ Burnett, who's coming back from DL, as well as Happ. They can certainly make a good run for the playoffs, considering the fact that, no less than 3 years ago, they were a joke of a team for years and years and years. So it's good to see them, pick themselves up and dust themselves off and kick some ass. So good for them. I guess Jay Happ seems to be a solid contributor, which is interesting. 4 doesn't make any sense because it's the Twins. Oh, well, the Twins are in the wild card hunt. Minnesota acquires Kevin Jespin from Tampa Bay. I'm not familiar with reliever. There are relievers I'm familiar with. Kevin Jespin is not one of them, but apparently he is the closer now, and seems to be doing pretty well. Like I said, the Twins are in the wild card hunt, so they do need any help that they can get. Having a solid closer going into the playoff push certainly doesn't hurt. As much as I don't believe in closers or closer mentality, just having a top tier reliever certainly stops any bleeding. Will certainly help your team keep those wins that you've earned. Fifth on the list is the Rangers trading for Cole Hamels. This was something that I knew about, obviously, but I never really considered it since the Rangers were in such a strange position at the mid-season, at the trade deadline. They weren't doing well, but they weren't doing terrible. They were in one of those places where a good run will certainly give them a chance to make the playoffs. And as of today, or at least as of last night, after last night's game, the Rangers have the AL West. They haven't clinched it or anything, but if the season were to end today, they would have it. So I know the Astros were... I was talking about them a while ago about how I would like them to win. I still do, but, nothing's set in stone. The Rangers winning after coming back from such a strange beginning of the year would be nice, even though Cole Hamels hasn't been a superstar ace like he was in Philly. Obviously, having such a top-tier pitcher certainly does help with everyone else in the rotation, so... Even though Cole hasn't had direct impact himself, he's certainly had the mental impact. So maybe we'll see the Rangers in the playoffs. Who knows? That would be interesting. Speaking of the Astros, they're next up on Jerry Krasnick's list here, as they got Scott Kazmir from the A's at the trade deadline. Or actually, I think it was a little bit before the deadline. Anyway, Kazmir... for those of you who aren't familiar with him, was a stud pitcher for the Devil Rays when they were the Devil Rays many, 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 many moons ago. He had ran into a slew of injury problems and was kind of in and out of the baseball world for a bit of time, but had a resurgence about 2 years ago. The A's signed him at the beginning of the year, hoping that they could use him for a playoff run. Fortunately, the A's suck, so they traded him off to the Astros. Since then, Kazmir has been pitching okay. I'm not a big fan of pitcher wins, but he only has 2. He's 2-5. But that doesn't mean everything. His ERA is at 3, and he's been pitching a lot of innings for the Astros, which is pretty key. And he's just been a solid pitcher. Obviously, the rest of the team hasn't really followed suit, as, like I mentioned before, they've just dropped their lead to the Rangers. So that should be a tight race. Everyone in Texas should be going crazy for this. Let's see. Is there any other good ones? Because now we're starting to get into the bottom of the barrel. Here we go. All right, so the Royals, Kansas City Royals, after a World Series push, personally, I thought that was just a one-time thing, but I'm glad that they're proving me wrong. Well, glad in a sense. Obviously, I want them to not do well since they're in the same division as the White Sox, but beggars can't be choosers. But the Royals didn't have a solid rotation coming into this year. And even though they're in first, if you consider the playoff push plus the playoffs themselves, they definitely needed another good pitcher. Enter Johnny Cueto. I know I've talked about him before. At that point, probably one of the top tier free agent potential signees of the 2015 offseason going into 2016. So, I mean, even at the start of the year, Cueto was pitching very well for the Reds. However, since coming to the Royals, he hasn't been that great. He's been hit around a lot. He doesn't seem to have the same eclectic stuff that he did in Cincinnati, and things are looking a bit rocky for him. The Royals are still doing good. They still have a double-digit lead in the AL Central, but Cueto certainly hasn't been Cueto. I don't know if that's going to hamper his free agent value, but he obviously he'll still get looks, but I don't know if he's going to be making the big bucks like he would, everyone thought at the beginning of the year. But he still should be valuable for the team come the playoffs, because that's a top quality pitcher in a rotation that needs it for the playoffs when you only need 3 or 4 starters. So even though his regular season hasn't been good, that doesn't necessarily make it a bust. Gotta wait till the playoffs, but as of right now, it hasn't been that great of a trade. All right, so the rest of the list includes teams that aren't going to be making the playoffs, as well as including the stupid St. Louis Cardinals, so I'm just tapping out right there. So I think this trade trade season, quote unquote, has been pretty good, pretty interesting, and everyone seems to be at least participating somewhat. They're not busting hardcore. Then you have the total opposite extreme with Cespedes, but it's going to make the end of the season very interesting, and the playoffs too. So certainly, but again, can't grade the trade in full, until a couple of years once these minor leaguers and prospects start developing and, show or not developing, and basically, the teams being able to get major league value or non-value out of them. So stay tuned for that. And that wraps up episode number 20, episode 20 of the Baseball and Beer podcast. Want to thank everyone for listening all the way through. And if you want to get in touch with me or have any questions, if you want to discuss with me what I should do after baseball season ends, there are several ways to reach out to me. You can certainly email me, baseballbeerpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to join the Facebook group, I certainly try to listen to that and post and keep that updated. That's facebook.com/baseballbeerpod. Twitter is the same thing, @baseballbeerpod. And if you want to visit the website where I post all my previous episodes, if you want to bookmark it so you know when new episodes are coming out, usually sometime Wednesday late afternoon, you can certainly check me out there at baseballandbeerpodcast.blogspot.com. Again, there is a difference between the website and the email address. Email address does not have "and" in it. It's just Baseball Beer Podcast. Website is Baseball and Beer Podcast. So just want to clear that up for anyone who was listening. Again, this was episode 20 of the Baseball and Beer Podcast. My name is Brendan Bowes, and thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week.
Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
Awesome.
I do not like Julia Roberts movies.
Guys, does girth similarity affect Ehrlich's ability to jerk different dicks simultaneously?
Shit, yeah, I think it would.